This episode of Philly Fame TV is sponsored by Top Dog Law. Now y'all already know who to call for any accidents or injury cases. If you want that top dollar, you better get that Top Dog. You can hit him up on Instagram at Top Dog Law or visit his website www.topdoglaw.com. Philly Fame. Alright, y'all, welcome back to Philly Fame TV once again. Appreciate everybody that's been tuning in. This your first time tuning in, make sure y'all like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We got another special episode. This is episode 11 of Drilladelphia. And this episode we're going to cover none other than Wallo267. Wallo got an interesting story. I know he a celebrity now. He a public figure. He did tons of interviews, so a lot of his story is well documented and all that. But it's another side of Wallo's story that's not as well covered. A lot of people don't ask him too much about. It's a lot of his Philly come up before he got locked up. And, while he was in jail, then his transition home and all that. We did Wallo's first official interview when he first came home back in 2017. So we're going to touch on that as well. But we want to first start off early on, jump back before he became, Wallo267, and then we'll get into, that story and all that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We talking about Wallace Peoples, also known as Wallo267. But before he was Wallo267, he just went by Wallo or Walito. He said the 267 actually come from his prison number. A lot of people think it come from 267 being one of the area codes in Philly. You got 215 and 267. So a lot of people think the 267 come from that, but he said actually come from his prison number. His prison number was DG2670. So he always wanted to, remind himself where he coming from, where he came from, and keep that with him going forward in the future. So we're gonna break his story down in the different, different parts, if you will. So this part gonna be his early years. So we're gonna touch a little bit on his early years. Grew up, with his mom, his grandma for the most part, his brother Steve. He always talk about his brother Steve and all that got killed. And he got older sister as well. I think that's on his mom's side. I don't know if he the dynamics with his dad. I know his dad was in his life. He got a picture of him and his dad when he was a young boy. And he got some flicks of his dad. He talk about his dad, but I don't know if his dad actually raised him, grew up with him. They was in the same household and none of that. I'm not too sure about that dynamic. Now I know him to be from North Philly, 13th and Allegheny. That's like Nanny. I think that's where Nanny house is. Or that's where it was. That's where they, came up at. I also know he lived, they had an apartment on like 10th and Cortland at one point in time and all that. But I know him to rep like 13th Allegheny. That's where we actually did the interview at when he came home. That's where he was at. 13th Allegheny. And like I said, you always mention his brother Steve that got killed. They was real tight. That was his older brother and all that. And they was actually cellmates in Dollaz prison at one point in time. So that's how crazy it was. His brother Steve was in the streets early. So that's how Wallo kind of, went down that path as a young boy. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But, they were cellmates in Dollaz prison, I believe. And that was after he was cellmates with his stepdad. He was actually cellmates with his stepdad too before. So, Wallo had a crazy story, as far as that prison stuff. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. But he was outside early. Like I said, his older brother was in the streets, so he kind of chose that path early on. So Gil, over the years, always bid on Wallo on the podcast and joke on him about him getting locked up when he was like 10 years old or something like that, 11 years old. And he said early on he started off like snatching jewelry and stuff like that, like snatching chains and stuff. Or people, like, that was a thing back in those days. You could take them to the jewelry stores and all that, and they give you some bread for them. So, I mean, gold and all that. So a lot of people snatching jewelry, snatching earrings and all that type of stuff. So then he say as he got a little older, he graduated to the drugs, but that wasn't really his thing because that was a little too slow for him and all that. He liked the fast money, so he got into like armed robberies, like robbing stores and stuff like that, like Burger King's, Hollywood Video. He'd just go, I mean, tell him hit the safe, take the money and go. I mean, that was his thing. Like, so like I touched on a little earlier, he got locked up as a youth. I believe he did like 5 years in the juvenile system early on. I mean, this before his adult prison stint and all that. And also as a young boy too, he was a part of the Lowlives. I mean, that's actually where he got his name from, Wallo. I mean, that's part of the Lowlives. He got his name from, you know, Boostin' Billy, B. Bill, I mean, from New York, the legend. I mean, he the one who pioneered the whole Lowlives situation, as far as I know. I think so. He pioneered that in New York. Then he came and brought it here to Philly and put people on in Philly. So it was a squad of them. Like, so you had Wallo, you had Rick Lowe, you had one of his homies named, I believe, Smoke Lowe. I mean, another guy named Doug Lowe. So I mean, quite a few of them with the Low on there. So that's how Wallo got his name, because his name Wallace. I mean, but you know, Boostin' Billy came the name Wallo. So he was running around with them for a little minute. You know, they had a legendary run back in the day, you know, boosting the little stuff, wearing all the little stuff, selling the little stuff and all that. For those who ain't familiar, that's what the, you know, the whole Lowlives way was. Now let's get into, you know, this Gilly the Kid, how him and Gil, you know, connected. You know, they family and they cousins and all that, but they wasn't the kind of cousins that grew up all together every day and all that, knew each other, all that. They actually met when they was young, and then they see each other for years, and they reconnected when they was older.
See, what happened was, the way this whole thing got started was, I was coming down Germantown Ave one day. I come across Germantown and Pike. I go in the barbershop, and this cat from Nicetown named Akeem. Me and him was real tight. So him and Gil in there spit. They in there like, they going at it in there. I slide up in there because I don't know what happened with Akeem. That's my guy and all that, but he ran out of gas. So I slide in, oh, there's Gil in there. I slide in, I drop a stack, you know what I mean? Gil coming back, we back and forth. The bottom line was, we realized, damn, this cat I'm hot, he hot. Oh man, we got to do something about this. So I leave. So we exchange numbers, I slide out. I called him about a week later. I said, man, I got some things. I'm gonna set up something. I think me and you do some things together. Call him. He come down the crib. In the process of me being in the crib right around the corner, my older brother, rest in peace, Lil Steve, he come downstairs. When he come down, he like, cuz, what's up? All along, this is my kinfolk. I don't even know this is my family. But from that day on, it was on because we didn't see each other for years since we was kids. So it was just like right then and there. We start going to my man 2020 up here, my man Peanut. We start going up there, you know what I mean?
So from that point, they became tight and cool, and they clicked up and started rocking together. And I mean, and from there, I mean, Wallo pretty much started Major Figures. But prior to that, he was a part of Lyrical Terrorists in Nicetown. He was running with Spado. They had a little group called Lyrical Terrorists, and Wallo was like a hype man. Then he kind of started rapping with that crew. And he said Spado actually taught him how to do a 16 bar verse. He said prior to that, he just was rapping, like just rapping his ass off. And Spado kind of taught him like to break it down, 16 song structure and all that. So when he fast forward, when he linked up with Gil, then he wanted to start Major Figures. Martin started group Major Figures. I mean, that's how he kind of brought Spado in the fold with that. Like, Wallo was the connection between Spade and Gil, because Wallo used to run with them. I mean, so he pretty much brought Spade over. So early on, it was Gilly. He said Rick Lowe was supposed to be a part of it, but he got locked up. But he was on like a freestyle or something, like doing the early freestyles. back in the day, I know he was on one of the tapes and all that. So it was Rick Lowe, he got locked up, and it was El De Niro, Spado, and Gilly, and Wallo. So that was the early group of major figures. Then the other group members kind of came from there. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother story. So I remember he was running around with the Wallo's Way movement. This was prior to him getting locked up. He was doing Wallo's Way, his own little, you know what I mean? He has little t-shirts and he was doing music. Like Wallo was a rapper. I mean, so that's how I first heard about Wallo. I knew him from being from Wallo's Way. Like, you know, my mom was in the mix back in the day and all that. I mean, those who you know. Like, so she kind of knew them, like knew Gilly, knew. I mean, like, so she actually had. I remember I got in a car with her one day, and she had some Wallo's Way t-shirts in the back seat, like some Joes that had Wallo's Way. And they might have a CD or something. With Wallo face on there or something like that. So she kind of knew Wallo in them back in the day and was supporting. So that's kind of my introduction to Wallo, how I heard of him. And then he got locked up like right after that. Like, so shortly after that little Wallo's Way run, he got booked like right after that. So Wallo was early with the merch and pushing his product. Like, he was one of the earliest. Had to be like 97, 98, something like that. So then he got locked up.
So I'm like, damn, this is, you know, we doing it. So it's me, him, and El De Niro. We just going in. We going in. At the same time, we going in. I'm out there, you know what I mean, doing my thing in the streets, doing ups and stuff. I wound up getting popped. Bang. The game changed, you know what I mean? They knocked me in my head, big sentence, you know what I mean? And, you know, and that's where that. The next thing I seen was, years later, as I see the video come across, and it was just like, you know, the great thing. At that moment, I said to myself, oh man, I come inside the cell. I just came from the yard, halftime. So I come inside the cell and I'm like, wow. I'm in there, I'm taking my stuff off. It was a hot. So this is around the time when it was this little animated host on BET named Cedar or something. So she talking, then the joint came on, doom, doom, doom. I said, yeah, that's us. I said, so I listen, I ain't never heard it before, so I'm like, damn, what is this? I look up, I see, damn, oh. I see the name, I said, whoa. You know, so I sit down on the floor, I couldn't believe it. And at that moment then I realized that you really could make something happen on a legitimate level.
Right. So when you got locked up the first time, and when you watched the video and all that, how long did you end up sitting that time before you first came home?
I did 5, came out on pre-release. I was back in like 6-7 months later. I was back in like 6-7 months later. You know what I mean? And they stretched me out. You know what I mean?
So you did 5 years.
I did 5.
Came home
15.
For 6 months, 7 months. And then end up getting locked up again.
Go back up, man.
And sent you to 15 years.
Yeah.
So what was your mindset?
No, they actually sent me, the first bid was 6 to 25, and they came back and they hit me with a 6 to, no, they came back and hit me with a 13 to 27, and I did 15 of that. You know what I mean? So it ran it, so it was just crazy.
Yeah, so what was your mindset like knowing that, yo, I just came home from 5, then I end up only being home for a couple months and they sent me right back down? Like, what was your mindset when you went back in the second time?
When I went back in the second time after I regrouped, you know what I mean? Because, you know, you got to regroup from that. That's deeper than a body shot, you know what I mean? See, I'm a real cat, you know what I mean? So I deal with who I am. So my body was in so much pain after I got that fresh bit. I'm like, damn, I was just out there, I caught this bit. So now, you know, I had to really go in and regroup, but also I had to really check myself. But it's time to check myself, you know what I'm saying? Because when you run in and out of these joints, it's a lot of people that's down with me, man. All over, you know, city of Philadelphia, I got a lot of people. You know what I mean? You might don't see it, but there's a lot of people that really rock with me and believe in me. So, you know, not just let my family down, let myself down, just letting people down. It was like I had to regroup. It was painful. It was real hurt, man. My soul was crying every day. I'm back in the cell. I'm back eating Chi-Chis. I was just on the street eating strips and all. Man, you had to reprogram yourself for that. So once that hit, I said, you know what? I got a bit to do. Let me knock this bit. And that was my mindset. It's sad, but the real thing about it was, by me being in institutions my whole life, it's like they prepared prepare you for the next level from juvenile. So I was just prepared. I was like, all right, I did 5, so I'm gonna do 5 about 2 times plus 3. I'm thinking about a 13 and a half, but it might turn to this. So I already knew I had to do. I said, okay, I gotta do this. But while I'm doing this, I ain't gonna be in jail. I'm gonna be in Yale. I ain't gonna be in prison. I'm gonna be in Princeton. I'm not gonna be in Penn State. I'm gonna be in Penn State. Every day I'm gonna turn my game up. Every day I'm gonna find me some new information. I'm gonna connect with some new information every day and make it so I could be better than who I was yesterday. Every day I'm gonna do this. No matter who coming to jail, who ain't. No matter who got a knife. No matter who got the package to jail. That ain't none of my business. My business is getting my game up. My business is I'm in this university every day, and I'm going back out there and turn my game up because.
Now we're gonna take a quick commercial break. Give y'all a word from one of our local sponsors. This episode of Philly F.A.M.E TV is brought to you by 1212 plant-based hair care products. These products are good for men and women and best used in barbershops and hair salons. You could pick up some 1212 products at Hair Buzz and Hair Town in Philadelphia. Also shop online 12haircare.com for all deliveries. Now back to regular scheduled programming. So the 5 plus the 15 equal 20. So a lot of people think he did 20 straight when he tell a story, because it kind of is, because he only came home from that little bit of time in between. But a lot of people may not know that, because a lot of people familiar with the story, like I said, it's well documented. He's a celebrity now and all that. So, you know, the story is out there, but a lot of people may not know that he came home for like 6 or 7 months in between that time and got locked up again and did 15. So that was crazy, like, to have, I mean, like, so that's what made his story crazy, like, I mean, because Wallo was on some, I mean, like, he was a whole different person than what y'all see when he came home and all that. Like, he was a whole different, I mean, mentality, a whole different animal back then. So I believe he was in 2 different, he did majority of his time, and not all of his time, in 2 different prisons. He was in Graterford and he was in Dollaz. I'm not sure if he was in, I mean, in the other joints, but that's like the main joints he talked about being in, I mean, and that's well documented, him being there. And that's where his whole transformation kind of came into play at, I mean, in prison. I mean, he said at some point in time, you know, he had came across an iPod Touch in a hot spot, and he was getting access to the outside world, you know, after talking to the young boys that was coming in and giving the game on, you know, what was going on in the world for social media and all of that. And then when he got access to that iPod Touch in a hot spot, and then he got a cell phone that he got on Instagram like 2013. I believe he joined Instagram 2013. And he actually started posting like motivational quotes and stuff on his page back then. Because I started following him on Instagram maybe like 2015 or something like that. So this was like a couple years before he came home. And he was posting stuff before he took a little hiatus and went on a little break for a couple years. But he used to be posting like motivational stuff. He used to be promoting people and stuff on his page. Like he had a little, I mean, he started the whole Instagram wave back then. And they say also start, you know, talking in the Graterford auditorium. Like that's where he started speaking, and he's speaking to people in prison and learning from different people in prison. He said he wasn't scared to tell you, he was one of the people that wasn't scared to walk up to people and talk to them and find out what they do and what they on. Like he said once his eyes was open and his mind was open, he was just trying to learn. Get as much information as he could, because he saw his transformation. Like he saw it before he even came home. So a lot of people saw him when he came home doing the videos, but he started it in prison. So let's fast forward a little bit. Well, I mean, during his prison time and all that, because he did 20 years, so you know we ain't gonna touch on this whole time, but he met a lot of brothers while he was in there. Obviously, been in there 20 years, and he came across all types of people. Some people that were rappers, some people that's in the mix, all types of stuff. And while he's in jail, you know, Gilly, you know, he was tapping in with Gil the whole time. Gil was putting him on game, what was going on outside. Gil was coming to see him and all that, came to visit him. When Gil got into the movie shit at some point in time, he had brung Ben Rames, you know, he did the deal. He had a movie deal with Ben Rames. He had brung Ben Rames down to see Wallo and all that. So, you know, that was a good look, and that was love, holding him down all that time. He was connecting, like I said, with different people in there, and he was connecting with different people on the streets. Like, I mean, Tone Trump, Creed, he was calling a lot of people, getting on touch with him on the phone, hollering that. So Wallo built a lot of different relationships and stuff like that from prison. Like, I mean, talking to people on the streets. He's like, he would burn out anybody, I mean, who would talk to him on the phone. He'd call him and burn them out. Like, so that's why I mentioned Tone Trump and Creed. That was like 2 people he named off top. 2 of the people they named that he said like he would burn them out on the phone, I mean, and whoever else would listen to him at the time. So then now let's fast forward to when he actually came home. I mean, he came home, I believe it was February 18th, 2017. So, you know, after doing that long 20-year stretch, and like I said, prior to him coming home, he already started on the IG, started posting motivational quotes and all different stuff. So he already had his IG page up and running, but not rolling. He ain't have a whole lot of followers. He ain't have a big following. A lot of people who didn't really know who he was. I was familiar with him because, like I said, from, you know, the Wallo's way. I heard that through my mom, you know what I mean? So I was familiar with the Wallo's way. Then I obviously knew he was connected with major figures. I didn't know he started it. I didn't know he was Gil's cousin and all that, but I knew he was a part of that somehow because, you know, Gil and them should shout him out. So then he come home, post a picture. He come, I mean, fresh out the prison, pointing to the prison sign and all that. So then, you know, he start posting videos from the crib. Like,
peep gang, this is $1,000 right here. This is $1,000 in cash. Once again, that's the book of life. That's what that game, man. But this is $1,000 in cash. I mean, $1,000. Now look, I just walked out of the penitentiary Saturday morning. You understand? Saturday morning, I walk out the pen. I'm going to take this $1,000, right? That $1,000 you see, and that game that I got, all legit. I'm doing all legit. I'm gonna turn this $1,000 to 100 grand. I'm gonna turn that 100 grand to $1 million, and I'm gonna turn that $1 million to 100 million. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take care of my family, and I'm establish generational wealth. And if I could do it, you can. I only been home a couple days, and I'm ready to turn it the fuck up, and I'm not playing no games. And if I could turn up, you could turn up. Don't never let nobody tell you what you can't do, because if I could do it, you could do it, and if you could see it, you could be it. And it's real like that. That $1,000 right there. Remember I told you, I'm coming. I ain't playing no games.
Like, I mean, first couple of videos he posted talking about, you know, he just came home and showing what he telling people his plans, like what he gonna do and all that. He started like immediately. I mean, then you saw him posting pictures, him in the mix with everybody, connecting with all these different people and all that. And then eventually start doing his videos outside. So I'm watching him. I've been following him. So I'm watching this whole, I mean, watching him, seeing what he's doing. He's starting to go. Then I'm saying, like, he's starting to help me build some momentum and all that. I mean, this is aside from Gil, because Gil was doing him, but Gil wasn't Gil all the way yet when Wallo came home. But Gil still, you know, he always been a figure. He always been, I mean, a personality, always been known in the city, but he wasn't always active rapping and shit. Like, he wasn't always active doing shit, but he always had a name. Like I say, he got in the movies, so he always did different shit, I mean. But he wasn't, I mean, at the top of the city and all that, but he had a nice little name. So Wallo pretty much was building like his own wave and his own name on his own, independent of Gil pretty much. I mean, I seen him gain momentum and steam. And then I seen, from my perspective, when I seen it pick up and going, I seen connecting with like Old Melly, you know, seeing people like that connecting with him. That's like, oh, all right, like he getting, I mean, he connecting with people that's already shaking and moving. And next thing you know, he with P&B Rock, and you know, so like now he's starting to shake and move. Like, I mean, eventually he connected with Meek and all these different people and shit. So I mean, he's shaking and moving. So eventually we start F.A.M.E TV 2014. We doing little episodes and shit like that on cable. Then fast forward a little bit, we eventually start doing, you know, the interviews, like the individual solo interviews for YouTube, you know what I mean? So we rolling with that. So like I say, he come home 2017. We really started rolling with it in like 2016. So when he come home 2017, he been home for a couple of months or whatever. One of his homies one of his close homies that he was locked up with, I can't quote his name off the top. I know he go by Habib Face on Instagram, Habib Face 267. And you know, Wallo go by Wallo267. I mean, so they was homies. They connected in jail, And then he came home, and I mean, he was holding Wallo down. I mean, kept in contact with him. So when Wallo came home, they connected again. I mean, so they was real tight. They was running around together and all that when Wallo first came home. So he was actually tapped in to F.A.M.E TV and fucking with F.A.M.E TV heavy. And I guess he was sending the interviews and shit to Wallo, and Wallo was fucking with him. So Wallo was tapped in and all that. So eventually, you know, he connected. He set it up for, you know, for us to connect and to be able to get Wallo and do an interview with him. You know what I mean? It took a little second to get him. You know what I mean? Because like I say, he's starting to roll at this time, but he still, like I say, he just came home and only been home for like 3-4 months at this time. So he ain't making nowhere yet, but he starting to roll a little bit. He's selling his t-shirts and stuff, and he just came in. That's what he pretty much was doing at this time. So eventually we was able to connect and make it happen. He told me meeting right there near 13th and Allegheny. You know what I mean? That's where Nanny house was at. So he told me meeting right over there across the street from the McDonald's and all that, right there off of Allegheny. So I ended up meeting there, and I mean, when I'm meeting, you know what I mean, we started talking off the rip about, you know, he told me like, yeah, I've been tapping into the Jones, and I mean, I fuck with you because you stay consistent with it as far as even trying to get at him to do the interviews. Like, I mean, I respect that. So he's like, I mean, I like the interviews that you've been doing. I mean, I fuck with it pretty much. I mean, and then one thing he said off top, I mean, that was crazy that he said it and how it ended up happening later. He's like, I don't know if this young gonna do no ARAB numbers. I mean, that's one thing he said, because at the time we had just dropped one of the ARAB interviews, and that joint was at like 100K at the time or something like that. So he was like, nah, I don't know if it's gonna do them numbers. I mean, like, but what's funny about it, because I mean, I ain't know neither, because like I said, he wasn't nobody like that as far as like everybody else. I mean, in the world, yeah, he just was making a name in the city. I mean, and he ain't having no other interviews out at the time, so this was first joint, so it wasn't no telling how it was going to do. But that joint eventually did ARAB numbers. Like, well, that was the crazy part, like, because eventually after we did the interview, he got bigger. I mean, name got bigger, and the interview just grew and grew, and the interview was good. It was a lot of good content there, so that shit at like 175K or something like that today. But it's crazy that once we did the interview on the alert and we was done, he said there's a lot of stuff that transpired with this interview that make it legendary. For one, like I said, him saying the Arab stuff. For two, we did it outside. Like I said, I mean, he just came home, so we just did it right there near his crib where he was staying at. And while we was outside, you know, two good brothers walked up and was showing love to him and captured a crazy moment with the guy, Fat Boy Stern. Shout out to him.
Get out there and work out.
I do.
Get out there and turn it up even more.
I used to play for 2 teams at the same time and go to both practices each day.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You keep doing it, when you don't stop, and you're going to get to where you're trying to go. I believe in you. You got to believe in yourself every day. And going life, there's going to be people that's going to come. They're going to try to stop you. They're going to try to tell you what you can't do. Don't let nobody tell you that you can't do something that you never do. You keep going, you keep going, and you keep going. Because people put their limitations on you. Because people that live their life, they be like, man, I ain't never was able to do it, so you can't. Don't play that. Keep doing you. Every day, every way. You know what I mean? And you're going to make it happen, man. I believe in you. You got to believe in yourself.
Wallo267. I know you don't know me, man.
How you be, brother?
But I had to come and tell you, and I appreciate every last word you say out your mouth. You're my big homie. I grew up with you, man. And you came home, man, and I watch you every day, man. You inspire a lot of people. I just want to tell you I appreciate you 100%, man. Like, because it ain't too many brothers like you, man. And I don't know if nobody done told you this, man, and I know God got a calling for your life, man.
I believe in God, man.
Souls, man.
I believe in God.
You're going to bring people over to let them know that no matter what you do in life, man, you're going to be able to make it, man. I salute you, man, 100%, man. This is real. This is you 100%. I'm proud of you, man. I don't know you, but I love you. You hear me? Like a brother, man. Like, I love you, man. You hear me? Like, I mean this, man, from the bottom of my heart, man. I love you like a brother, man, and I just want you to keep on pushing forward, man, because, like, you the reason why a lot of people out here changing lives, man. And I know you don't know me, man, but you'll get to know me, man. I promise, man. I love you, man. And I appreciate you 100%, man. That's my word, man. I ain't gonna stop. I appreciate it. Don't stop, man. Don't stop, bro. I gotta take a picture with you. You can't stop, man. You hear me? You can't stop, man. You gotta, man. Listen, man. You a blessing, man. You hear me? You a blessing, man. You hear me? Like I sit back every day, man, and I use your term. The haters is promoters, man, because they promote me, man, and I salute you, man, 100%, man. Appreciate you. And when you see Gil, my big homie, man. I've been around to my old head, like so. I salute you, man. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we captured a crazy moment right there at that time. I mean, while he was outside, that ended up being a legendary moment. I mean, I'm just paying homage to Wallo. I mean, showing genuine love to him, just bumping into him outside while we doing the interview. And then also during the interview, we gave, like, you know, Wallo was doing clips prior to this, like on Instagram. So 1 minute clips of him just giving game and all that. So this interview was like 35, 36 minutes, something like that, straight of him giving game. Like, so this was like different in this sense. Like, a lot of people ain't seen him in long form really giving it up. He really gave up a lot of game in that joint, and he really prophesized on a lot of stuff. Like, spoke a lot of stuff into existence that happened for him later. Like, a lot of stuff that he said he was going to do, like, he ended up doing. Like, from there, like, if you go back and watch the interview now, like, he really spoke a lot of the stuff he was going to do into existence. I mean, so that was a crazy joint too. And then after the interview was over, he was really like impressed, like, far as like the knowledge I had him, because a lot of people don't know about him, you know, man, his wild leaders way come up, the major figure stuff. Like, a lot of people don't ask him about none of that stuff, so he's real impressed about how much I knew about him. And I mean, he's like, damn, a lot of people would want to talk to you, you know what I mean? Like, man, he was giving me my props and stuff like that. And then one thing he said too that really stood out, made it legendary too, because he ended up going on to do it. He was like, yo, you should have some ads and some commercials in your joint. If I'd do it like this. I had ads and commercials in it, you know what I mean? Really, you know what I mean? And another thing he said too is like, you should do, I mean, focus on stuff that everybody care about. Like, you know, this cool, but like, he's basically saying, like, do more, like, stuff that cover stuff outside of just, like, Philly stuff. Do stuff that everybody care about. He's pretty much trying to tell me that back then at that time. I mean, then fast forward, we'll touch on this too a little bit more into the episode, but when he went on to do the $1 million worth of game, John, he started doing all that stuff. You watch $1 million worth of game, they got motherfucking ads all through that joint, commercials all through that joint, and they cover stuff like celebrities and big time people and stuff that everybody care about. And you always hear Gilly say, we ain't doing no big Thursdays, we ain't talking about no old nigga. I mean, like, so pretty much their vision was that, like, get new people, stuff that everybody care about, and put ads on there and make money. Like, so that's pretty much some of the game he was trying to give me at the time. He ended up, you know, going on to do it. So that was, like, I mean, legendary in itself, you know what I mean? So then a little bit of time after the interview, you know, he was rolling, like, he started taking off. You know, also he was met with some criticism too, you know what I mean? That's well documented. Gilly talk about it, how, you know, a lot of his family members was hitting up Gilly saying, yo, Wallo burnt out. Yo, what's up with him? He tripping out and all that, especially like the video where he's laying on the ground, like he had blood on his face. Like, don't wait till it's too late when it's really like ketchup and shit all on his head. A lot of people was like saying that Wallo burnt out. I think even Gilly posted about that before, like, once Wallo and them was about to sign their first little deal. I think Meek posted something about that, like, people talking about Wallo, and now I'm hearing about $1 million deals and shit like that. So it was well documented that, you know, a lot of people thought Wallo was tripping, and Wallo even said it himself. Like, he used to be sitting in the nanny room just laughing because niggas thought he was crazy and burnt out, and he's like, I got these niggas, like, they don't even know now. I don't gotta worry about them getting in my way because they think I'm burnt out. I mean, so a couple months after the interview, I actually seen him at the event. Not a couple months later, but I think in like December. So we did the interview in June. He came home February 18th. We did the interview June 18th. So exactly 4 months after he came home. I mean, so later on in the year, I think it's like December, I actually seen Dollaz had the event. I mean, an event for like the up and coming artists that's popping in the city at the time. Like, Pounds High Pop was there. Fat G's, Lights, Cameras, like a bunch of them type people was there. And, you know, he invited me to come through that joint, and And Gilly was there. I mean, not Gilly. Wallo was there backstage, and he was actually there with my man Breon. He used to be with my man Breon and shit when he first came home. I know my man Breon. He from Chester and shit. I know him from school and shit. In college and shit. I know him from there. He from Chester and shit. So when Wallo first came home, that's another person he was running around that I actually knew, that I was actually thorough with. So I actually seen him at the event with Breon and shit. Then shortly, sometime after that, Breon got locked up. I ain't know, like, I just heard, I don't know how true it is. They say he was like a big street boy out there, out in Chester, getting money on, some heavy work shit. Like, one of them boys out there, ended up getting caught up and locked up and shit, for that. Like, so shout out to my man Breon, man. He was a thorough boy, so hopefully everything worked out for him. Like, so I went to his page, he ain't posted nothing since, like, 2018. That's his last post, so I guess he been locked up since then. So like I said, this was the end of 2017, I believe, when I seen Wallo, like December of 2017. So Breon must have got locked up in 2018. Shit, crazy, like. So fast forward a little bit, Wallo leveling up now. Time home, a year passed, like, when he doing something, like, he became, like, one of them guys in the city, Eventually, they start the Millions Worth of the Game podcast. Gilly, eventually they start that joint and they hit the ground rolling because Wallo already built his status and his name up on his own with the motivational videos and all that. He had built a big wave with that and a big follow on Instagram. Then, Gilly, same thing on his side with the $1 million worth of game. The videos he was doing on his page, so he built his own wave up, and then they came together and created that monster of a podcast. So he started leveling up like a motherfucker, like, doing all the shit that he said he was gonna do for the most part. Then eventually, he had the relationship with April. Early on, short-lived, but it was good to see him at the time. My bro just did 20 years. He come home, he said Shorty was showing him love on his page. He pull up on a Baltimore bagger. She was a boss on her own right, had shit on. So that was a good look for Wallo at the time. A lot of people was happy to see that. Was hoping that he really turned it up with that. But unfortunately, they went their separate ways at some point in time. But at the time, when he came home and was rolling, that was a good little situation for him. Eventually they had signed a deal with Barstool. Major situation now. And then, after they signed the deal, unfortunately, the situation with Dollaz happened with the podcast, not Cheese, but that was, they was doing the podcast with early on. They had their little discrepancy and all that. We ain't gotta dig too much into that, but that's well documented about that. So they ended up separating from him, doing their thing and getting different hosts. And that's when they had Don't Call Me White Girl for a little period of time. They separated from her. She went on to do her thing. She popping right now doing her thing, but that come from them. So that was a good job too. Like in the middle of their run doing their podcast and all that. And eventually, I'm going through a lot of this because, like I said, a lot of stuff is documented for the most part. Like, as he, blew up with the podcast, a lot of people know a lot of this story. So I'm going to just touch on some of it and not really dig too deep into a lot of it. So fast forward, they start taking it to the next level. They start eventually, first they started off just potting with them, talking shit, different topics, popping shit, bidding, laughing, joking. They even rumbled on the episode. And then eventually started doing like interviews and shit, and get all these big celebrities and shit to come on. So that took their shit to a whole nother level. Got the biggest celebrities in the game came on their shit. And then fast forward, to more recent time, they recently, not that long ago, signed, they signed one of the biggest, deals for black creators and podcasters in history, like the $100 million deal with Barstool. They built their value up, they showed, built up crazy numbers in a short amount of time. The engagement on their YouTube videos is crazy, the engagement on their Instagram and TikTok and all that shit crazy, like. So, they had a lot of people probably bidding for them to bring their podcast to their network. Like, so, they got the crazy deal with Barstool. Like, that was legendary. Like, so for Wallo to go from I mean, like, crash W, young wool, burnt out, shot out, get locked up, always in jail, always locked up, always in the dumb shit, always, I mean, burnt out, shot out, crazy, all of that. For him to go from that and to come home, and I mean, in 5 years, I mean, he get 4 or 5 years, he get able to land a $100 million deal. Like, that's a movie, bro. Like, that shit like don't happen to niggas in real life, bro. Like, that's like some crazy shit that happened with them. Like, man, like, legendary in real life. Like, so niggas from Philly that really was in the field, really was outside, like, I mean, make it to that level was crazy. So salute to Wallo, I mean, for that. I mean, coming from the interview that we did, he was outside with it. I mean, like, in the streets, in the trenches, like, so that was crazy for me to see with my own eyes too. So then fast forward to more recent time, you know, in 2023 now, you know, a couple months ago, unfortunately, you know, Cheese got killed. Dev, I mean, aka Cheese, I mean, Gilly's son, you know, like, so that was a crazy little time in the situation for Gilly and Wallo, and I mean the whole family and the city. Like, that was a bad joint. These niggas was out here, you know what I mean, doing positive shit in the city, giving away money to small businesses for Barstool, sponsoring these grants, and Gilly and Wallo was going around giving it to different businesses and stuff like that in the city and doing a lot of positive stuff. Like, I mean, so that was a bad time, but it was good to see a lot of people come out and support them. Meek and Freeway and a bunch of the people in the city, you know, come together and support them at that time, you know, and it was up in the air about them doing the Gilly Fest. But, you know, they eventually, you know, did the Gilly Fest. That was like, so he got killed like a week before the Gilly Fest, which was in July. I mean, so they ended up having it, and it was a good time for them to celebrate, you know, Gilly and celebrate Cheese, and I mean, just put on for the city. Like, that was a great situation, a great look. I mean, I'm glad they did that. So, you know, like I said, man, like, Wallo done did he had a crazy run, bro. Bowden went from, you know, he done was a spokesman for like different NFL teams, college teams and shit, like motivational speaker and all that. He's like the ambassador for like Google and YouTube, or like the brand ambassador or some shit. Like, I forget his exact title, but he like on official staff and board of like Google and YouTube and shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, Wallo, like, he beat the game in a whole different way. Like, he's a crazy success story, you know what I mean? Like, and fast forward, you know, he was early on when he first got his money, like, he ain't really like the flaws, he ain't really like do too much, but after a while, you know, he started splurging a little bit, you know what I mean? And I ain't mad at him for it. Like, you know, he didn't grab like a lot of nice little car collection of shit. First, Gil used to bet on him about his old cars and all this bullshit. He used to have like the minivan and all these little cars he had and shit. Then he started leveling that. Now he got the Lambo, he got Maybach truck, he got Benz joint. Like, Wallo doing him, bro. Like, he living life and he looking good doing it. Pause, move home a little bit. You know, he shining. Like, I mean, it's good to see. You know, if you know his story, you know where he come from. Like, I mean, he made it to the highest level. Like, and I mean, he in the game, plugged in with all the big celebrities. You know what I mean? You could call damn near any celebrity call. Like, they real live, I mean, celebrities out here now, like him and Gilly, you know what I mean? And they put on for the city and they make the city look good. So, you know, shout out to Wallo267, man. Bro had a crazy start, but he just proved the show it ain't about how it start. You know what I mean? It's about how you finish. Like, so shout out to Wallo267, shout out to Gilly too, know what I mean? Like, maybe we'll do, you know, another story on maybe like Gilly or Major Figures or something, know what I mean? Like, you know, at some point in time, but I mean, that's gonna conclude this episode of Drilladelphia. Episode 11, the Wallo267 edition, know what I mean? Shout out to everybody that's been tapping in, shout out to everybody that's been tuning in, showing love. Appreciate all the support and feedback. If you ain't been tapping in, make sure y'all go back and watch our previous episodes. Make sure y'all watch our other series, What Happened To and Where Are They Now. And stay tuned for more content, stuff coming soon. Like, in the meantime, between time, we signing out. F.A.M.E TV, we out of here.